Well, I hope Thursday morning starting out for you well. God has been good to us on this end, and not that we don't have our battles and our struggles. Believe me, I think some people think that if you're in ministry or you're in a position like I am, that my wife and I don't have to go through any kind of challenges. Our life is just as challenging as yours. I remember years ago I had gotten my fifth speeding ticket. This was soon after I moved to Spokane, and it was the first time in California. You just kind of drive with the flow of traffic, and this was the first time I lived someplace where they actually did check how fast you were going in relationship to the posted speed. And so I had managed to rack up five speeding tickets in a row. My insurance company canceled me, and so I get on the phone trying to find somebody else who will cover me, and I end up getting an insurance man who went to our church, and I was telling my story, and he said, well, he says, you do go through the same kind of things as the rest of us. And I said, yeah, was that ever a question? So of course, I just want to comfort you that I learned my lesson. I slow down and I try to stay within the speed limit. And it's been a very long time since I've gotten a ticket for speeding or anything else for that matter. But nonetheless, I just let you know that we don't live charmed lives on this end either. We have to go through the same kind of things. We go through the emotional downturns. And, my wife and I have constantly, and a lot of our friends, we've had this conversation of going through periods where you feel just kind of like mildly depressed. We wonder questions like, how are we going to manage the situations that we have to deal with? Are we ever going to take a vacation again? And what exactly does that look like? And so I don't want you to think that you're the only one that's going through it. No, we all are. But what I want to talk about today, and I started yesterday talking about Israel and touring Israel, and one of the places that we often visit when we're there is on the eastern side of the Sea of Galilee, a place called Kursi, Kursi is the way it's spelled. And it's believed to be the site of where Jesus cast the demons into the pigs, and the pigs ran down the side of the mountain and fell into the lake. The reason why people believe that's the place is, first of all, it's the only terrain in the entire Sea of Galilee where something like that could actually happen, where there's actually a precipice where the pigs could run off and actually fall into the lake and drown. But also there's some caves there that would fit the description where the demoniac, actually Matthew's gospel tells us there were two men, and Luke just describes the one. But it's basically these caves would fit the description of where these demoniacs were kept, and they were near a Gentile town called Gerasa, which was part of what they call the Greek Decapolis, 10 Greek cities on the eastern side of the Sea of Galilee, and most of them in modern day Syria or Jordan. And so it kind of fits the story quite a bit. And it's really a dramatic story. If you're not familiar with it, it simply goes this way, that Jesus comes to this place, gets off the boat, and he encounters these demoniacs there. This one gentleman is particularly demon-possessed. He says he has a legion of demons. And a Roman legion, was 6,000 men. And so he's basically saying that he's packed full of these demonic forces, and it manifests itself in some really supernatural power. I mean, they put chains on him, and he can break the chains. I've seen similar things like that with demon-possessed people. Small individuals who are demon-possessed actually able to grab a full-grown man and throw him in the air 10 feet through the air and hit the wall. And that's when you realize real quick, you don't want to battle these guys with flesh and blood. This is a spiritual war. You need to be using the name of Jesus and come in his power and authority, not in any strength or wisdom or intellect of your own. But these guys come out, and they're offended, and the demons are just speaking through this man, telling Jesus to go away. And Jesus commanded the demons to depart, and they said, well, don't just throw us out into the abyss, and I mean the bottomless pit, which is basically, in Revelations we're told, is a spiritual, maybe even a physical place where the demons are going to be spent. It's a dimension, it's real, that demons are put and until the end time when they're brought up for judgment. But so they said, don't do that. And they said, cast us into the pigs. And so Jesus cast them into pigs, and the pigs went completely insane, ran off the cliff, down in the ocean, into the lake, and drowned. And it was pretty amazing, because I love the way Luke words it in Luke 8:35 when he comes to the closing part of the story. He says, And the people went out to see what had happened. In other words, as word spread about what had taken place, probably the pig herders, this is why we know it was a Gentile region, the pig herders probably ran back into town and said, we just lost our entire herd. The people come out and to see what was going on. And it says, when they came to Jesus, they found the man from whom the demons had gone out, sitting at Jesus' feet, dressed and in his right mind. And then further on, it says the people's reaction was that they were afraid, which is kind of puzzling on its own. But what I find really interesting is that this description of this man really coming to soundness of mind. We talked about last week about the parable of the sower and how the young man said he came to his senses. He came to this place where he realized that what he had been doing was self-destructive and foolish, and he repented. He said, I've sinned against heaven and I've sinned against my father, and I need to return home and ask for his forgiveness. And it's a beautiful story. I don't want to rehearse it again to you. If you want to go back, you can catch it from previous weeks. But the whole point is that I think I put these two passages together because coming to our senses, where's the most sensible place for us to spend our time? And I think, first of all, it's sitting at the feet of Jesus. In other words, when we set aside a devotional time every day to read the Word, to pray, and just have intentionally set up a moment or a few moments or even half an hour if you can, where you just focus on the Lord and you encounter the Lord through His Word and through prayer, that's really what sitting at the feet of Jesus is. It's putting myself under Him, and that's the image that's being communicated. This guy is submitting himself to Jesus. Secondly, when he says he was dressed, well, he'd been running around naked all this time, but there's also a powerful metaphor in the idea of being dressed as opposed to being naked. Remember, Adam and Eve were naked and they weren't ashamed, and then when they sinned, they immediately tried to cover their nakedness because why? They were ashamed of their nakedness. And the idea of being ashamed means literally that. You're dressed now with the righteous robes of Christ. This man no longer had to live in the world of remorse and regret over the life he had lived, but he had been forgiven and made whole. And then last of all, it says he was in his right mind. The only time that I think any of us are really in what we call the right mind, or really the best and most precise mind, is when our minds are focused on the Lord and we're viewing circumstances in our life with that kind of clarity. So I'm going to close here and I want to pick this up tomorrow because nice way to end the week about how we can really operate in what Paul said, a sound mind. So go into grace. I'll catch you guys tomorrow on the other side.